If this fire went out, an entire family would freeze before morning. One mistake, and none of the children would wake up. In the darkness of a Montana winter morning in 1883, the Morrison family slept inside a small log cabin surrounded by snow. And silence. Outside, the cold pressed against the walls like a living thing. The air was so sharp it could steal breath from a man in seconds. Inside, the only thing standing between the family and death was a cast-iron stove holding a few fading red embers. Those embers were not comfort. They were survival. 12-year-old John Morrison lay awake under heavy quilts stuffed with scraps of cloth and animal fur, watching his breath rise in small clouds. Beside him, his younger brothers slept curled together, sharing warmth. At the far end of the cabin, his baby sister slept between his parents, wrapped so tightly she looked like part of the bedding. No one moved unless they had to. Movement meant losing heat. Then the bed creaked. John's father, Thomas Morrison, stood up fully dressed. Frontier families slept ready. Emergencies didn't wait for boots. "Sarah," he whispered, "I need light." A match struck, loud in the silence. For a brief moment, the flame showed Sarah's tired face, lined by years of wind and cold, frost clinging to her eyelashes. Thomas knelt by the stove and opened its door. The metal groaned. Waited. Even the children, pretending to sleep, held their breath. "Still alive?" Thomas said softly. Relief moved through the cabin like warmth. The fire had not died. Not yet. Thomas carefully placed thin pine splinters over the embers, moving slowly, following patterns learned through brutal winters. Too much wood would choke the fire. Too little would waste it. He blew gently, waking the coals. A small flame appeared. The day had begun. This was not routine. It was a system. Pine to wake the fire. Oak to hold heat. Hickory saved for the night. Families that didn't understand this didn't last long. Water froze inside the cabin, so snow had to be melted. More snow meant more firewood burned. Everything led back to the fire. Outside, the cold slammed like a wall. Snow squeaked under boots, a sound that only came when the cold was dangerous. "Coldest yet," Thomas said. "And it's only January." John knew what that meant. More work, more wood. More days where one mistake could kill. When the storm finally broke, days later, the cold stayed. The sky cleared into a hard blue that looked beautiful from inside a cabin and deadly from anywhere else. Thomas looked across the valley. "We need to check the neighbors," he said. A family could do everything right and still die if they were alone and unlucky. John went with him, layered in wool, flannel, fur, and cloth. No skin exposed. "If you stop moving, you die," Thomas told him. At the McGlintock cabin, there was no smoke, no tracks, only silence. One more bad night, and it would have become a tomb. Inside, the stove pulled heat straight up the chimney. Gaps leaked cold. Furniture had been burned for fuel. Thomas didn't scold. He adjusted the damper, sealed the cracks, showed them how. To bank heat, how to use warmed stones wrapped in cloth at children's feet. This knowledge saved lives. That night, both families slept under one roof. More bodies meant more heat. In winter, frontier families didn't survive alone. They survived. Together, days later, neighbors gathered to trade knowledge like currency, what worked, what failed, what kept children alive. John finally understood. A cabin wasn't just wood. A stove wasn't just metal. Fire wasn't just flame. Survival was a chain of small choices made correctly, again and again, by people who respected the cold. That night, Thomas built the overnight fire with care, banking ash and closing the damper just right. Sarah wrapped warm stones. The children slept together, breathing the same warm air. John listened to the stove crackle. He did not feel fearless. He felt ready. They did not survive by miracle. They survived by systems, by knowing what to do in the dark. And when morning came, it did not feel like luck, felt like mastery.